kept vomiting on the ground, while the radiation meter beside him was skyrocketing. Someone was startled, only to find their hands covered in dust. Looking back, nuclear contamination had already engulfed them. People instantly became terrified, running wildly like zombies. Food and water became the most sought-after items. Traffic was completely paralyzed. Even doctors began to strike. The culprit behind this disaster was both a natural and man-made calamity. Not long ago, a magnitude 6 earthquake hit the city. The valve of reactor number and the nuclear coolant water leaked out. The nuclear power plant temporarily hired a few repairmen to weld the valve, but to save trouble, the repairmen directly shut off the valve, causing a sudden increase in pipe pressure. The station chief instantly realized the reactor had already started to melt down. The high temperature of the nuclear fuel generated a large amount of hydrogen. If the gas wasn't urgently vented, the entire reactor would explode. But at this critical juncture, the councilmen were only worried about their votes being affected. So they deceived the president, saying they had already evacuated nearby residents. But in fact, only a small village had been evacuated, under the pretense of a fire drill. At this point, people in the nuclear power plant were evacuating urgently, only to find that the higher-ups had locked the only passage. David activated the manual mode. Then he forcefully turned the valve. Hope was within reach, but time was running out. David dug through the ruins to save people. With the help of others, he and several injured people made it out of the nuclear power plant, but they had also been exposed to nuclear radiation and were isolated as contamination sources. On the other side, the president finally gave the order to have the rescue team pump out seawater to cool the reactor. But at this point, the water level in the spent fuel pool was already approaching the warning line. The only remedial measure was to send people into the nuclear power plant to repair the cracks. Under such high concentrations of radiation, no one could survive. Left with no choice, the president could only publicly confess on the news and beg the workers who had narrowly escaped death to go back and repair the cracks in the storage pool. The workers were very angry. This disaster was clearly your unavoidable responsibility. We clearly did nothing wrong, but now you're living well while we are doomed. But soon they realized not going meant death, going also meant death. Before long, the group put on thick protective suits and lined up to enter the nuclear power plant. The rescue personnel on both sides lowered their heads, paying the highest respect to these nameless heroes.